Hi, I'm Peg Louiselle, the Executive Director of Wyoming Catholic Ministries Foundation. This video message is intended for all the priests of the Diocese of Cheyenne, as well as the leaders of our partner organizations. We are approaching the greatest wealth transfer in history. In the next 25 years, it's estimated that $70 trillion might exchange hands from one generation to the next, and perhaps $50 trillion in the United States alone. This is pretty significant, and it offers us a good reason why we should have a conversation about planned giving in our diocese. So to that end, I'm honored to introduce a special guest. Jim Normandin currently sits on the board for the Orange Catholic Foundation. We met through Mary Brunson, our investment manager at Investing for Catholics. And prior to launching his consulting practice, Jim was the president of Memorial Medical Center Foundation. He is among the leading specialists in charitable gift and tax planning field. Jim counsels individuals, families, and their advisors on the best methods to optimize income, minimize taxation, facilitate meaningful wealth transfer, and to meet their philanthropic objectives. So we are very fortunate to be able to benefit from Jim's wisdom and experience. So Jim, thanks for sharing your time with us. Perhaps you can give us a brief introduction about why this is important for us to talk about right now.
Well, thank you, Peg. As she just mentioned, we're in the throes of a significant wealth transfer. And it's happening today. And it will happen for at least another 15, 25 years. And it is significant. And it's important that we talk to our parishioners, all those members of the diocese, even those visitors who come to the diocese, about supporting your parish, your church, your ministries, and for even the schools. And there are tons of opportunities upon which people can do this.
So one of the things that I've heard from priests is that these gifts are always a surprise to them. So why not just wait for the surprises?
Well, that's interesting, and it's true. And going forward, many of them will be surprises. For someone to choose to include their parish, their ministry, all the above, in their will or trust tends to be a private thing, something they do amongst themselves and with their legal counsel who helps them draft these instruments. They're not always going to tell you, and that's okay. But what you can do to be proactive is to cause these things to happen, and that is by talking to individuals about the importance of including their parish or school in their will or trust. Everybody has something. Everybody can do something. Some of us can do much more than others, and some of us, but the reality of life is we want everybody to do something. Now, I know you're not trained fundraisers, and that's fine. But there are a couple simple things that you can do to start some movement. First of all, I know during Lent, we often talk to the congregation about tithing. And our Monsignor used to say, today's not the Sermon on the Mount, it's a sermon about the amount. And he would do this at least once a year. And just like you, he got a good reaction. But the reality is, I think you have to report it every quarter. I think the important is that parish priest to share the finances of the parish with the congregation, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Thank them for, we increased giving in the last quarter by 2.2%. I think you need to thank your parishioners for that support. And I think you also need to tell them how you spent the money. You know, we pay the light bill just like everybody else. We pay the gas bill just like everybody else. It's reality of life. And I think the more you talk about this, but the more you also say thank you for their support. And you can tie it to the fact that this is our responsibility to keep the church alive in Wyoming.
So what if a priest gets asked, so what can you do to help me? Or, oftentimes parishioners will say, Father so-and-so, I'd like to help you out. What can I do? And we don't always assume that that means money, but oftentimes it, of course, does. How would you suggest they respond to that?
It's a great question, Peg. And here in our diocese, I'm attempting to get every priest to come up with a very quick response, and it's a thoughtful response, in that it's not unusual for somebody to come up to you on Sunday after Mass, say, Father, thank you, good homily. I don't know if that was so good. I know, we get those critics too. But the reality of life, there's always somebody turning to you and saying, what can I do to help? And I think a response that's worthy of some consideration is the fact that you can turn to that individual and say, there's two things. Number one, I want you to make sure that you and your family have an up-to-date will or trust. It's so very important. And part of that planning, you also have a up-to-date health care directive. And the second thing, I'd like you to consider prayerful consideration about including our parish and our ministries in your will or trust. Somewhere in the history of your parish, someone left you some of their estate. I don't think you have to mention the amount. I just think you have to mention that one of our fellow parishioners who passed away left us some. That's why we have the new steps on the side. We have the new ramp. We have a new garden. But you talk about that someone did it, because people look to success. And if someone did it and they see that you spent it correctly, or what they determined, and you accounted for it, I think you build credibility with your parishioners. Mm-hmm. The message can go out every week in the bulletin, in that it doesn't cost much to put more ink in your bulletin. But what if there was a little box in the bulletin that said, please give prayerful consideration to including our parish and the ministries in your will or trust. Questions, call Peg, because Peg is here to help back up the parish parishioners.
How about other ways that they can make that message, get the message out there? Are websites effective? Are other media, is that an effective way to communicate that, or should it just be in person? And
you're right, Peg. There are a number of different ways you can communicate this. I think using your website, it's a tool, and it can have, I'm sure there's something right there that, make your contributions here, donate here. It also can talk about estate giving, and in there you could have sample wording, how to include us in your will or your trust. Wording that they can download, they can fill in the blanks, do whatever they want, share that with their legal counsel. It's just providing a tool for them. There's also ways that I suspect, Peg, you're going to be able to provide them some information that they can put on their website. They don't have to reinvent it. You can put it, and it can make it, you can tailor it to that particular parish, right, and even that particular ministry.
And actually, I'll mention that I will be providing the sample language to all our parish offices and all our partner organizations, so that they have it available to either put on their website or when people call. We just got a call this past week that a parish was looking for the language. So happy to support each of our parishes and our ministries in that way. Stay tuned for more resources and information that's going to be sent to you in the coming months and weeks, and thank you for all that you do in support of the church in Wyoming.